No, there's not much bait except for a couple places in the channel, like Port Manatee Channel. There's some bait there. It's real deep, but as far as on the flats or the towers and stuff like that, it's really hard to find bait. Well, I launch out of Cockroach Bay a lot, and also Simmons Park. So those are two of the places that I launch out of. Right, yeah. Down around Cockroach Bay and Manatee River, all
And
the way down to like the Skyway and Joe's Bay and all that down there.
right. And right now, if somebody was to call you up for a charter, what are you mostly targeting right now?
Right now, it's going to be a little bit of redfish, snook, a little. We're not going to really
Right.
spend a lot of time unless they're biting.
Right.
And then sheephead and trout.
Yep.
The trout have really been on fire on the flats lately.
Yeah, there's been a lot of action on trout. Now, recently, at least on my area, there's been a lot more juveniles that have moved in with some nice keepers mixed in. How's your side dealing with that?
It's the same. You could catch trout one after the other,
Right.
almost every cast, but it's only going to be once in a while that you get one that's a keeper size.
But
or occasionally you'll get a big one.
Yeah. And when we talk about big ones and trout in this area, I mean, we're talking anywhere from like 17 to 22 inches. That's about the norm for a big one around here.
Yeah, I did hook one that was about 24 inches. And I think he was hanging out on the flat with the small trout, looking to eat one of them.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. What I found now over the last couple of weeks, if you get down around the Skyway, Fort DeSoto, there is actually a little bit of bait on the flats over there. A lot of glass minnows. I'm sure you've been seeing that. A lot of glass minnows.
Yes.
And the thing that was the key last time we fished down that way was the trout were actually following. This is in about 3 to 4 feet of water. They were actually following the schools of glass minnows and feeding on them. So we were using lures. So if you got your lure into that patch where the glass minnows, it was literally just one trout after another.
Yeah, that's when you get on them, it's a lot of fun.
It is. I mean, we throw a lot of saltwater assassins. That day, we probably caught 30 or 40 trout, and it was the sea shad that we were throwing and little P&Z, but the sea shad really was really on fire that day. And you know me, I'm always stuck with those chicken on a chain or electric chicken. I'm just in the chicken colors right now.
Yeah, I like. My go-to is a Miradine and the chartreuse with the silver white side.
Okay, yes.
And I mean, that's my go-to confidence bait right there. And it's, if the trout are biting, they're going to hit that thing. And they just hit it hard. I like the way they hit it.
Right. I'll tell you, a strike on an artificial, like, it just seems more aggressive. It's harder. I think it's because, like, when you're using shrimp and that bait's just laying there, they don't have to react so much to go get that bait. Where when you're throwing an artificial, that thing's moving, and they got to make that decision to either hit it or miss it as it goes by.
Yeah, it's the reaction strike that.
Yeah, it's aggressive.
That you're trying to to get them to bite, but they're just sitting there maybe waiting for something to go by. And when they see that lure going by, they got to jump out and grab it in a hurry.
Yeah, they've got that second and a half to make the decision on whether they want to eat or miss that artificial going by. And that's to our advantage because it doesn't give them time to figure out that it's an artificial before they're hooked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, a lot of times too, we'll use the scents, on the baits just so that when they grab it, it actually helps them to hold on to that artificial a little bit longer just to give you that good hook set chance.
Oh yeah, I'm always putting a scent on there.
And so lately, I think you're seeing kind of the same pattern as me over here. A lot of juveniles, like just undersized. And then my last trip, we got 4 or 5 keepers, which was nice because they're wanting to take something home to eat. But what I'm seeing now, because we got an outstanding warming trend that's happening right now, it's almost, I hope the water temperature doesn't just skyrocket, and go from, winter right to summertime. But right now, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot more snook coming out of their haunts. They're actually roaming the flats a little bit. We've got some on the docks and a little bit better sized redfish. We've been into the just undersized to maybe 20-inch reds for a while now, which is kind of like the wintertime pattern. But now I'm starting to see some 22s, 24s, and 25s starting to swim around.
Yeah. I haven't really seen that as much on the other side there, but I know that they're probably there somewhere. I just haven't really spent a lot of time looking for them.
Yeah, they're not everywhere right just yet because it's not really that time yet. But the amount of warmth we're getting here in a row,
I know.
I hope it mellows out a little bit because I don't want it to just fly right past the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't want it to go straight to summertime. It would be nice to have a little bit of a little bit more winter and a nice mellow spring. But
at the moment, it's not looking like that. But we've seen cold fronts come down and through like even late into March. So and I don't want no super cold fronts. I just want enough to keep that water from just the temperature raising too quickly. Because I'm sure as well as I do, when you have that water temperature in that 70 to 74 range, 75, that's like perfect, like everything's active. And, like, what do you see, like, coming up for, like, your area? What do you see happening?
Well, I see that with as warm as the water is on the flats, I see the snook are going to start coming out of the the back creeks and out to the close to the passes. Of course, they're always going to have that area where they can want to revert back to, like some deeper areas and stuff.
Right.
In case it does get a cold front, but I've seen people out trying fishing for them. So the water temperature is the right temperature for them, but I don't know that they really have come out that much.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more warm weather.
Yeah.
Next week is supposed to be, or this week is supposed to be warm the rest of the week.
Yep. And that's where it gets scary sometimes because if it stays warm like 2 weeks in a row, like what we're seeing, or even 3 weeks in a row, these fish come out of their deep haunts where they stayed to stay warm. And all of a sudden, if we get like one of those really bad cold fronts that come through, that's when you got to worry about fish dying.
Yeah, that's the scary part. We don't want a really cold front. If it does get cold, a mild cold front would be what we would want.
Yeah, we'll call it a cool front.
Yeah,
a cool front. We can take a
cool front, not cold.
Yeah, because we got into some scary temperatures. We really had some Arctic blasts for a while there, to where we've seen some low, like 55, 54 degree water temperatures, and That's the danger zone. When you start getting into the 50s like that, that is the danger zone. We start seeing, floating snook. And I did hear a few reports of a few being found here and there.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that too. I didn't see any in my area, but then again, sometimes it was just too cold and windy to be out there on the water too. So
Yeah. This year has been definitely windy. We've had a couple of nice weeks going on now. Um, I actually did some freshwater fishing recently and some scouting, excuse me, on the freshwater side. And I went to Lake Seminole, and one of the smaller ponds had a bunch of dead. They look like tilapia to me, and the whole pond was just stinking because of that. And I'm
yeah,
hoping that was just from the cold and not because there's something funky in the water.
yeah, some of those fish are more tropical and they can't
Yeah,
handle too cold of water.
yeah. Do you ever get out and do any freshwater fishing at all, or not really?
Yeah, well, I grew up bass fishing for ever since I was a kid. That
That
was
that was that
when
was
I
me
was
also.
12 years old, I wanted to be a professional bass tournament fisherman, and
Yes.
I joined the Bass Masters Club and all that, and got
Yep.
their magazine, and it's just you know what I wanted to do. But I bass fished, and then I saltwater fished quite a bit too. But I think the thing that really changed it was when I caught my first snook,
Yeah.
my first keeper size
Right.
snook.
Right. For
And then I got the bug for the snook, and I said, um, I still go freshwater fishing sometimes,
right.
but mostly saltwater.
Right. See, for me, it was the same way. I wanted to be a professional bass fisherman. I mean, I I grew up in New Jersey. I moved down here when I was 12. I was really, really good at bass fishing. I mean, I just used to fish bass all the time. So I wanted to, in my head, it was just like you. I wanted to be a professional bass fisherman. I joined the club, got all the
Yeah.
magazines, the decals, the stickers, and
Hmm.
then I moved down here, and it was like the land of larger bass, because they
Yeah.
feed longer down here. I was in my glory. Then I started dabbling with my bass lures in the saltwater, and started catching some redfish. And the pull on a redfish is just tremendous. And that was it. I got hooked on the saltwater fishing. I mean, Ken, you catch a 3 pound bass and you're holding that thing up like, look at this 3 pound bass, and 3 pounds is
Yeah.
every day in the saltwater.
Hmm. Yeah. I know. It's like, and the thing about saltwater is, I mean, you can go and target fish, but you always have other options,
Yes.
a good variety of other options that if what you're targeting is not biting, then stop
Shame.
targeting it and
Yep.
go find something else that will bite.
Yep. I mean, that's what I do with my charters too. I'll try to get you what you want, but if we spend too much time and it's just not happening, let's go catch some fish. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing that really I liked about the saltwater, the variety. But if you're fishing for bass, depending on where you're fishing at, you might get a pike or a pickerel or something like that. But if you're fishing saltwater for redfish, the next thing you know, you're on a flat and there's a 45-pound cobia coming past you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you're not going to ever see that in freshwater like that, unless you're fishing some major large lakes, maybe muskie
Hmm.
or something. But yeah, I fell in love with the saltwater also. So yep, here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Um,
Like
Now, do you ever target mackerel? A lot of guys don't.
I do. When the mackerel are running good,
Yeah,
love to catch mackerel. They're fun fish to catch. They're
yeah.
um, you get them biting good, and it's just
It's
one bite after another.
yeah,
And
it's every cast. I mean, I love targeting snook. That's probably one of my favorite inshore. And I like the redfish because you tie a redfish tail to a snook tail, the redfish is going to win every time because they
oh
just
yeah,
don't stop. But the speed of the snook, the jumping out of the water, I mean, it's just two totally different types of fights.
yeah, it is. It's I like both of them.
Yeah.
I don't think you know, I don't really favor one over the other. I just like both the snook and the redfish.
Right, right. Um, Snook, I don't know. For a while there, I really, I got really good at snook, and that's like one of the main things I targeted for a long time. Um, but don't get me wrong, like probably some of my first saltwater fish that I caught with the bass lures was redfish, and the first time I ever used a gold spoon, my father-in-law actually introduced me to the gold spoon, and the first time I ever used it was Green Key Beach. I was wade fishing. He told me where to walk to, where to turn, and which way to cast. And I got out there, and first time using that Johnson Gold Sprite spoon, I caught 8 redfish, and that was it. I was in love with the spoon. Artificials for redfish, that was just unbelievable for me.
Oh yeah, yeah. The redfish are they're great. They really fight hard and they don't give up.
Now, and now, you know, back in the day, it was always the bass fishing tournaments, and now the redfish has caught on so big that we've got multiple different redfish tournaments that are national.
Yeah.
And what was it? Brett Norris and I think it was Chris Howell just won the major tournament that just happened this weekend. So congratulations to them.
Yeah.
Our local guys winning it.
Right. That's good.
Now, a lot of people, this time of year, artificial is great, but we're getting into that spot where the bait's starting to show up a little bit. And usually when that starts happening, if you can show up with a live well full of white bait and there's redfish and snook around, usually you're going to just do phenomenal, really, a lot of times.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing, it's down by the Skyway area, and there's probably patches of it up by us and or probably by some range markers and stuff like that. But it just depends on the day. Unfortunately, I went out on Friday. I went out to the hard hat, and it was no longer there. It's gone. I don't know if I'm wondering if maybe one of the hurricanes wrecked it, and then they pulled the rest of it out. But literally, there's just a single pylon there now with the range marker on it, which really stinks. Nobody asked us about this. That was one of the great little, deep water bait spots.
Yeah.
And now you got to go find a new one because that one's gone.
Well, yeah. If you really want bait and want to make
the
sure
run
that it's theirs, go to the Skyway, and it's pretty much always there.
Yeah, it's got to get, the water temperature's got to get down into the 50s before it disappears from the Skyway. I've seen it where it has, but that's a rarity. Skyway always has it. Right now, it's loaded right now. I mean, there's no doubt. You want to make a run down there, you can load up. But, the hard hat, and there's a couple other ones that actually got removed that were all really good bait spots, and they're picking them away on me.
Yeah. I know. It's like they don't think about the fishermen when they take those things out.
I know. I had a spot that was in 15 feet of water, and it was just 2 pylons. But the thing was, they were the only structure in the area, and the cobia loved them. You could anchor up tight of those 2 pylons and catch 5 cobia in a day, just hanging out there. And they yanked those out of the water also. And I was like, oh, you're killing me.
Yeah. I always having to find new spots. So I mean,
right. You always have to adapt. If you can't adapt, you're not a good fisherman. That's for sure. Now, so what have you been doing lately? Like, what kind of fishing have you been doing? Like sheep's head, or what have you been going after?
Well, I've been doing a little bit of everything. Just trying different things to see what's going on.
Right.
Some of the patterns that I had that worked years ago don't work like they did.
Nope.
And it's like I don't understand exactly what's going on, but I used to be able to go to the power plant.
Yes.
And catch pompano and maybe a cobia, but there was always something biting there, and mangrove, snapper, and sometimes some around the rocky parts, you can find the sheephead there. But
Right.
it's not like that anymore. It's like since they changed the power plant over from mostly coal to natural gas, the water temperature is not quite as hot coming out.
Exactly.
And even when the bay is pretty cold, it's warm, a lot warmer coming out, but it's just not that big difference like it used to be.
Yeah, and I've seen that also. And it really isn't like that. Hot water used to really shoot out far, all the way to the channel, and you would see quite a bit of difference in the water temperature. And it's just only a couple of degrees now. Sometimes that's enough, but it's not attracting the fish like it used to. That's for sure. I totally agree with you on that. Let's see if my computer will work good. But the other thing I noticed is the last 2 years, I would say, like you're saying, things are changing. Everything seems to be at least a month late. It's like the big sheep's head. Normally,
Yeah.
January, you'd have a lot of big sheep's head already moved in, and it seems to be happening more towards the end of January, like last year, and then more into February, even lasting into March.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't know what's changed. Maybe it's because all those plants are keep lining up at the same time now. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't know. It's different, but sometimes I just take what's there. I mean,
Oh yeah, you just
some
gotta
of the
go.
places that I'm looking for the sheephead, and there's so many Key West grunt there that even if the sheephead were there, I don't know if they would ever get a chance to eat it, because you
Right.
drop your bait down and wham, you get a Key West grunt. And I'm talking some really good sized ones. So you know what I'm doing?
Oh yeah.
Is
Oh yeah.
I'm taking some home and having
You're,
some fish fry.
yeah, you're not the only one, because people are taking advantage of those, because I mean they've got really good white meat on them. Some people put their nose down to them, but to be honest with you, they're actually good table fare.
Yeah, they're really good to eat. Uh, and if they're biting good, you can catch enough of them to make a nice meal for a couple of people,
Oh yeah.
or if there's more people on the boat and they're catching them, they could have a nice fish fry.
Definitely, definitely. And like the charter boats, gray snapper.
Yeah,
They got to
yeah,
make it sound better for the people that are on vacation that they're catching snapper.
so that's been a lot of what I found out on the rock piles and stuff in the deeper water,
The reefs,
where those big sheephead usually show up this time of year.
right?
I'm hoping
Right.
that they're still coming, just like you said. There's going to be a little bit later.
Yeah, and I think it will be, because last year I was catching the large sheep's head all the way into March. You know,
Right?
and
Yeah.
years ago I talked to some people, and we always relate the water temperatures, to the fish, and we definitely see that, patterns. But now I've heard this from a few different people over the years about how they say it's more of a, sometimes a calendar thing, and like there's a debate on that. And but the thing is, no matter what, we used to always see the sheep's head in the beginning of January,
Right.
and now they really didn't show up until just recently, like the larger ones, and they're still not that good like they should be. They really should be like loading up all the rock piles and docks and seawalls.
Yeah, I've seen some people that are catching some, around the rock piles and stuff, and around bridges and stuff like that, and they're doing pretty good.
Yeah,
But not the really big ones like I'm talking about, but the
right.
those 14 to 16-inch ones. They're
And
catching some of those. That's
yeah,
which is good.
and I've seen a few people like out there by Port Manatee Way and the rock piles out there getting some larger sheep's head, but they're not everywhere like you would expect them to be,
Right.
by now. And
Yeah, Yeah, and I'm thinking they're going to show up anytime soon. And it's like when they
Yeah.
do, I want to go out there and keep trying just to see if they're there.
Oh yeah.
And
I I recently, like I've been hitting this one dock that I like and been waiting for it to light up. And finally, I caught some off of that, and it was like, okay, they're starting to show up again. And then I look
right,
at my notes from last year, and it was the same way. They were late, and I caught them all the way into March. But like, you could go out into the bay and hit usually any good deep rock pile. I don't even say deep, even like in 10 to 15 feet of water,
right.
and it would be loaded with sheep's head. Like you could go out to some of the rock jetties, you could see them swimming along the rock jetties.
Yeah, that's not happening right now.
No, it's not like that yet. I'm hoping it does because a lot of people don't like to go after sheep's head, but I'll tell you what, you get even let's say a 20-inch sheep's head on light tackle, it feels like you're fighting a grouper.
Yeah, it's a good fight.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Ken, let's go ahead and run one of the fishing reports of Colta. If you want to run Bucky's, we'll get the fishing report up there and see what Bucky did today.
Good afternoon. It's Captain Bucky Goldman, Bag Fishing Charters, Tampa, Florida Fishing Guide.com. So, water temps are warming up quite nicely, which is great. I actually located some bait. It hasn't quite gone back to the bridges, but it's out there in some of the deep holes. A lot of thread fins mixed in, but today I actually chummed up some white bait too, so I ended up like throwing a few times, getting a bunch of white bait, and then sitting there and picking out a bunch of thread fins. Still on quite a few thread fins. The other day, fishing was really good. You got reds. We've been finally started catching some snook again, lots of trout. Some big jack showed up. We almost got spooled by one jack. So that was really good. Today I had a dad and his daughter played hooky for her 10th birthday. And the only fish she's ever caught is maybe 4 or 5 little bluegill. So we started off catching some trout. I got her throwing a jig, a curly tail, and she probably caught about 20 trout on that curly tail. Couple nice decent ones in there that were above 15 inches. Most of them were anywhere from 10 to 14, 15 inches. Then we switched gears and really started catching some decent fish. Started getting where I wasn't expecting trout to be. Started catching quite a few nice trout. Anywhere we got one that was pushing 20 inches. And a handful of others, some ladyfish, some catfish. Then we started catching some redfish. We probably caught 7 or 8 redfish today, as well as went 3 for 5 on snook. Ended the day on like a 30-inch snook, so it's been really good. I have some availability coming up, so I'm looking to get out there. If you're looking to go, give me a call. And then right now, as far as freshwater goes, I've been walking around my pond and I've been seeing all the male bass starting to dig out their beds. There's full moons in a few days, so these big bass might actually show up on these beds. And some lakes might be different. They might already be there. They might already have spawned out. But if you're looking to catch a big bass, I'd go around and walk slowly and keep your eyes peeled and see if you can catch a bass. If you can't get that big girl to eat, sometimes the best thing is to try to pluck that little male off the bed, get him caught, toss him out, and then focus your attention back to that protector female. And a lot of times she will come down and try to protect her nest and her bed. And it's a good way to get some big bass. But now's the time. Probably now until the next end of this month coming up. Might see some big bass on the beds. Anyways, that's my report. Captain Bucky Goldman. Remember, fishing is fun.
All right. Thank you very much for the report. Good varied report there.
Yeah, it reminds me of those days when I used to walk the banks and look for those big bass bedding.
Oh yeah, yep. You might catch them even though they're not hungry, just because you made them mad.
Right. Yep.
I've seen them. I'm sure you, with all the bass experience, also where you'll see them pick up a worm and just move it and spit it out just to get it out
Right,
of their
yeah.
bed.
Yeah, that's if you keep at it and make them mad enough, they might grab it and eat it and
right.
catch
Right.
them.
I remember probably there's been a couple of really good bass days that stick in my head, but one of them was I went on a full moon night to this pond that had a lot of good bass in it, and throwing a top water lure, and because of the moon really making that presentation for them to see, because it was a bright full moon. I mean, we caught like 21 bass in a very short amount of time, and then we had to go because it was kind of one of those private lakes you weren't supposed to be at.
Right.
But well, it was a fun time. Of course, I was probably about 21, 22 years old at the time. But yeah, I've been chased a few times off of private ponds.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I can remember that too.
yeah, and I'll tell you, some of those smaller ponds, like my uncle made friends with somebody that had a small pond, and he caught two 14.5-pound bass out of that thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It doesn't take a real big lake to grow a big bass, but
No,
they just need plenty of good food and
right,
right depth
right.
of water and stuff, and they could grow pretty big.
And a lot of times what people don't realize, or maybe they do, is those private little ponds, they hardly ever get fished. So those fish will eat. When you throw a lure
Yeah,
in there, they'll eat.
yeah,
Um,
they haven't seen a lure like that before, so
right,
you
right.
know,
There's nothing for them to be scared of. Uh,
uh,
Kind of the same way, like when sometimes people get the pass to fish up inside MacDill Air Force Base.
yeah,
Those fish eat. Uh, they're not finicky. It's food, and I'm going to come cremate it, basically.
yeah,
I mean, because
yeah. That would be fun to be up in there.
yeah, I know. Like years ago, Jim Lemke and I can't forget who else. They went back in there. They kind of got the free pass to do a little filming back in there, and yeah, it was just good times right there. Um, I think I don't know. That's where fish do learn. I mean, there's no doubt about it that fish do learn, and they pass it on down the line.
Yeah, and we have to adapt to
Yep.
try and fool them and get them to bite because it was not that long ago. Uh, 30, 40 pound leaders is what everybody used.
Yep. That's where I
Well,
was
that's what I
going.
used.
When,
Yeah,
when, when you started talking about it, that's what I was going to say because you know everybody used mono, and then when I first tried fluorocarbon, it was 2 to 3 to 1. There was times when we were fishing the snook using fluorocarbon, they wouldn't bite, and then excuse me, when we were fishing mono, and the snook wouldn't bite, and that was when I first had a roll of fluorocarbon. I wasn't catching any snook, but they were eating every chummer I threw out there. And this is a lot of years ago, but I was like, all right, well, I got this fluorocarbon everybody's talking about, so I took it out of my bag, hooked one of the rods up with it. Very first cast, I was hooked up. Years go by, I was throwing 30-pound fluorocarbon, no issues, catching all the snook I ever wanted.
right.
As the years gone by, I had to drop that 30-pound fluorocarbon down to 25 because I wasn't getting the hits like I used to.
Yeah, I tried dropping down to 20,
I hate
and
it.
that's fine for trout and even
Redfish,
redfish. But with the snook, that 25 seems to be the
break point.
yeah,
Yeah,
because you could catch that 30-inch snook or 30
right,
plus inch snook with that 25,
right.
but you would almost definitely lose them every time on the
Yeah.
20.
See, on the 30-pound fluorocarbon, it was great, man. You had all the confidence in the world. You kind of, course them out a little bit and all that. But when they
Right,
stopped biting on that, I went to 25, and then I even dropped to 20. And man, you just lose way too many snook on the
right.
20.
Yeah,
And I can't stand. There's a happy medium between not getting a bite and losing too many fish. So I think the 25-pound is that happy medium.
right. I will still use 30-pound fluorocarbon
Right.
when I'm fishing cut bait,
Cut bait
dead
or
bait.
if it's dark out, you can
Right.
move up.
Yeah.
You can move up on the way to your fluorocarbon, or if you have to. I mean, if sometimes if you're fishing, you know, bridge pylons for snook that are big, 25
Yeah.
might not do it for you.
Yeah. If you want any chance to catch them at all, you got to
Right.
move up.
Right, without a doubt, without a doubt. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a little break again, and let's let's run Scotty Rowe's fishing report.
All right.
Hello, everybody. This is Captain Scotty Rowe from Charlotte Harbor. Just had a wonderful week on the water. I'm so glad that cold weather is over. Our water temp was in the 50s, and those first few days after that weather pass was really some tough fishing. But now our water is in the 70 degrees, 70, 71, 72, and I'm noticing the fish are coming alive. Catching some beautiful sea trout, some of the Port Charlotte canals, and around some of the, grass flats, 3-4 foot of water. Starting to see those snook start to bite again, which is nice. We always have tons of snook around, but when it's cold, they don't want to bite, and they're starting to bite now. Ran into some beautiful redfish, fishing some of the mangroves, and I was fishing the mangroves on the lower water, but I was just fishing 3-4 foot away from them. So those same resident redfish that live up in the bushes when the tide's high were just out a little bit on the low tide. Catching lots of sheepshead, lots of little mangrove snapper, having fun with that. The bite is just coming alive, guys, and spring is upon us, and you know what happens when springtime comes. Those snook go off. Looking forward to it, and we'll talk at y'all next week.
All right, all right. Thank you,
Good
Scotty.
report.
Yep, good report. As you can see, everybody's starting to catch a mix of fish, and
Yeah.
it's just coming into a really good time because with the way the weather's going, you can still catch your wintertime fish, and then you're getting your spring fish that are starting to kick in, your snook, your redfish, So it's kind of a really good time. Like I said, that's where I don't want that water temperature to change too fast. Let us enjoy this climb,
Yeah. That prime water temperature for most of the fish, and then having the sheephead coming in late is really not a bad thing because when the tides aren't really running good,
Yep.
you can go out and catch some of those. So they will bite even though the tide's not good.
Right. And what's really, in a way, I mean, I wanted to show up earlier because sometimes that saves the wintertime. It gives you a good fish to target, but they are coming in later. But the only thing good about them coming in later, it's almost like a joke. Normally, when the sheepshead come in is at the coldest point, and at the coldest point is when you can't find a fiddler crab to save your life.
Right.
So it's kind of contradictory of you guys should, move in sooner or later. Well, now with them showing up later, it's warm enough. The fiddler crabs are coming out. The bait shops are having them again.
Right.
Now granted, I have gone and picked off, tree crabs off the trees and off the seawalls to kind of use to make up for not being able to get fiddler crabs when they're not around. And people don't know this. You could buy actually like fresh dead blue crabs and use chunks of the blue crab, and sheepshead will actually eat that.
Well, that's a good idea.
A lot of people don't think of that, but you got to think about it this way. They love eating crabs. Fiddler crabs are their favorite. Tree crabs, they'll eat those in a heartbeat. So blue crabs you can always buy, chunk it up into pieces. It's got the crab flavor on it. It's a good bait. So I just gave out a good secret just now.
That's a good one. Good tip.
That is a good one though, because sometimes, man, during the wintertime, you can't find a fiddler crab to save your life.
Yeah, they're around now. I seen them at the boat ramp.
Yeah,
Just
filling
crawling out
around.
on the sand there, just ready for somebody to grab them.
Yeah. I just remember years ago, and actually somebody told me Fort DeSoto had them pretty thick again. But years ago, man, you could just take one of those small buckets and dig a hole that was, half a foot or a foot deep, put the bucket in there, walk back away because I don't know if people realize, but filler crabs have eyesight that is tremendous. I mean,
Yes.
I was like 50 feet away from some filler crabs behind a tree, and when I peeked out, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, like how the heck am I going to catch them? So like that bucket thing works because they can't see the bucket. By the time they see the bucket, they've already fallen in it. It's such a slick side they can't climb out. So it's kind of an easy way to catch them. I did
Right.
see something one time which I thought was kind of neat. The guy had a small, like 4 foot, quarter-inch mesh cast net. And when they get out on the beach, you know, away from their holes for a second there, sometimes they go down by the water a little bit. He was just throwing that because he could, a 4 foot net, you know, he could throw it 30 feet with no problem. So he was just throwing that and pulling it real quick just to get them kind of tangled up in there. And then he was catching them that way. And he had a bigger container that he could just kind of shake them out into.
Yeah.
So that's a different way.
That's,
And then,
that's a different way. I've seen it in the past. I've seen guys take 2x4 and put
Yeah.
it like a funnel
yep.
and then chase them in and let them get out, and they just run up on them and chase them,
Yeah.
and they would go in the bucket.
I had one area. I had one area that would work out pretty good because there's the sand and there are holes that they like to get into, and you know, I don't know if ever, you know, if everybody's seen them, but fiddler crabs are fast. I mean, there's,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
They're fast.
and so this one area was great. I could run up and kind of cut them off from where their homes were. So the only other choice they had was there was this grass, and they'd run into the grass, and then it was easy. You could just sit there and pick them out, like one off after another, and you could get 50 or 100. Let's see, Steven's saying, I throw my net on Channel A beach loaded with them. See, he's doing the cast net thing. I think that's the coolest thing. That'll be a new, you know,
Yeah, I have to
Mr.
try that
Mr.
one time.
Yeah, Mr. Leo start making filler crab nets.
Fiddler crab nets.
Well, we're getting. Let's run one more report. Let's do Pam. Let's get Pam's on there.
All right.
This is Pam, and I'm at Tampa Fishing Outfitters. Last week, I fished Upper Tampa Bay and had some great fish. This week, I fished Southern Tampa Bay as well as the Intercoastal. The red fish were chewing. You can see a couple of videos of some of the nice fish I ended up with, as well as the trout. Trout bite is astronomical. I met some people out there who are trying for trout. They're using little lures and catching little fish. I was using bigger lures, the Fluke, which I have a picture of a couple that are perfect for you, and did really, really well. Even had a 23 that didn't want to stay on the board long enough to say hi. But anyhow, water temperatures are between 66 and 71, so it's absolutely perfect. Get out there and fish. All right, check this monster out that I just got on my inshore rod. Beautiful. S&J. Almost 29, just short. Look. Whoa. Away.
So Pam's always got some nice fish on the measuring board there.
Yes, she does. Now I'm getting used to. I got this laptop I'm using for the first time for doing the show, and I was having a hard time with just getting used to it. But I see maybe I get Donald to make a comment here now that I see it, because he was saying there was no sound for me, like they could hear you and not me. So I hope everybody can hear me, and everybody that tuned in. If I didn't say hello, it's just because I couldn't see your name. So I see Michael, Donald, Alejandro, Roger, of course Linda, and everybody else that tuned in. We appreciate it. But let me know, make a comment if you can't hear me right now. I know Ken can hear me, so I want to make sure everybody else can. And then Donald says, this coming Saturday at Bay Vista Park, he's launching at 9 and lunch starts at 1 if everybody wants to come hang out. 7000 4th Street, South St. Pete, Bay Vista Park. All right, Donald. Donald's always having those get together. He does a good job on them. Let's see. Let's scroll down. All right, I'm caught up now. But yeah, if anybody could just make a comment and just let me know if you can hear me clearly or not. And let's see, it's 7:48. We got 2 more reports, but that's all right. We can talk a little bit amongst ourselves again. I got to keep remembering now. I got a whole different setup. This is the first time I'm using this setup. So I've got a camera over here, so I got to make sure I'm looking this way.
Right, yeah.
And it's hard because sometimes you want to look up at this screen to see what's going on. And, you know, it's like, no, now your eyes aren't facing the people. So it looks like you're not. I'm not trying to ignore anybody.
No.
So now, you know, we both like doing the trout thing. The old time school favorite was always a popping cork and a shrimp or a soft plastic underneath it, you know, deadly combo and things like that. And it does. I mean, I like throwing a jig. I just like the feel of that. I do like throwing a mirror lure. But that popping cork, I know you'll agree, Ken, that thing can really attract the fish to the bait.
Yeah, if I know the trout are there and I just can't get that reaction strike,
Right.
that's when I go to that popping
Yep.
cork, and that's usually where I like to use it is right on the edge of the flat where it drops off when they're
Yep.
hanging out right there.
Yep.
And it's like that bait, that sound, that popping sound attracts them, and then
Oh,
they
yeah.
see the bait just hanging there or slowly falling when they come to investigate the sound, and they'll hit it.
Now,
So
this is not typical. This is not something I normally would do, but I had one year, and this goes back to adapting and just doing different things. And always, if you want to be a good guide, you got to stay on top of it and try different things. If the fish are there and they're not biting, you keep trying different things. And then when you're exhausted, it might be time to, you know, move on to a different set of fish that might be hungry. But you do have to try different things. And the one day I had the snook biting really well, and I had father and son clients on the boat, and they shut down. They kind of got wise to us, I would say. This was
Right.
the weirdest thing, and this worked. And it was really a tactic for bonita that I tried on the snook just to see. And what I had was the round floats that you clip onto your line. It had the beads in it, so it had a little bit of a rattle, and it's weighted. So I casted. This is, like I said, a technique that you would use for bonita, except there'd be a small spoon at the end of it. Instead, I've got a live white bait. So we would cast. I tried casting really high, back past where the snook were hanging out, and then when it hit, you would reel really fast, and this thing with the beads and the float would just bounce across the top of the water, and I'd reel it for about 3 or 4 feet and then stop, and the snook would instantly come up and just hammer that white bait. Not a
Oh, yeah.
technique I would like think to use, and this was probably about 20 years ago, and I tried it and it worked like a charm. So we were the only idiots out there casting up to the sky, and people were looking at us like, "What were you doing?" And it worked. And really, when I was in my bass fishing days, with a topwater Rapala, gar loved that. If you got gar, throw it up in the air pretty high and let it splash hard, reel it 2 or 3 feet, they will come over and just nail it.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
get that
that's the-
splashing on top of the water, and that kind of does it for them. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
reaction
that's-
strikes.
This reaction, it's just something that gets their attention, so they come to see what's going on, and then they
Right.
see the bait,
And then you
grab
got to
it.
remember too, if there's usually more than one fish there, so if one fish starts chasing the bait, there's another one coming, and then it's like you get that competition, and when you get that, that's when the bite starts kicking in really good.
Yeah, if you get one to start biting, and there's a group of them, that will get them all fired up.
Oh yeah,
And
without a doubt. Let's go ahead and run Michael Dawson's fishing report.
Hi guys, Captain Michael Dawson here, Patriotic Guide Service here with this week's fishing report. This warm weather has brought a lot of great things to our area. Fishing has been phenomenal. Bait's showing up around everywhere out there. Fishing's been good and it's getting better every day. Best thing I can tell you right now is go find the bait, spend the time in the morning, go find that white bait. Power Plant, Howard Park, St. Joseph Sound. There's a couple different areas right now. I've been getting out there in front of the power plant every morning, chumming at 6:30 in the morning till about 7:30 and throwing that a couple times. You should have more than enough. Bait has been the key right now. No matter how stubborn the fish are being, you throw a 6-inch white bait in front of it and they're eating it. Trout are just about everywhere, from the rocks at Gulf Harbors, Spoil Islands down south in St. Joseph Sound, honeymoon holes, anklet holes, mouth of the Anklet River. It's been really good. Yesterday we seen lots of snook starting to move out of the river, not quite in their feeding mood yet, but in the next day or two here, a couple more of these warm days, it's going to get even better. Get out there, have a good time, have lots of bait with you, and you should have plenty of fish. Captain Michael Dawson, Patriotic Guide Service.
All right.
All right.
Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I think in our area, the snook are really going to start feeding hard this week.
Yeah, it is, because I'll be honest with you. If I would have had some white bait a couple of days ago, I think we would put quite a few snook to the boat, because they're definitely coming out. I mean, the water's getting warm, it's getting right, and it's really the bait thing. You know, like I said, if they ain't seen it in a while and you bring it to them, it's not like when it's super cold water and they don't feel like chasing the bait down. We're past that at the moment. Hopefully it stays past that. And like I said, we don't want to get too warm too fast, but keep it in that 70 to 75 range. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great to have that temperature for a couple of months at least. That would really be nice.
Right. Jessica just tuned in. That's okay, Jessica. People got lives, things are going on, but hey, we appreciate you tuning in and saying hello. Well, let's run my fishing report before we run out of time, and then we'll wrap her up.
All right.
Hi, Captain Tony Franklin back with this week's fishing report. The fishing this week, the water has really warmed up. The fishing has been really good, but what you got to watch for this time of year, when the water temperature starts to go up, these fish are going to start to move around a little bit. So we've had to move the boat around. We've had to try some different things, some different spots. Some of the spots that we're working, the water's got warmer quicker, and these fish have pushed out a lot of these areas. So that's why I talk about you having to hit different spots. As the water temperature changes, you check your water temperature and you make your adjustments. Some of the spots when we've made the adjustments haven't worked, but we've tried multiple spots until we find where they're located. They may have not moved far from where they were when the water was cooler, so you may not have to make a drastic move, but it's always a good idea to try different things, change things up. So let's get into the report with what's biting. The trout bite seems to be really, really well this week as the water has warmed up a little bit. I've been in a few different areas. That bite has really been good. We've been catching sand trout, spotted sea trout. Trout bite has been fantastic. Most of these areas around oyster beds and deeper pockets of water. Once again, around mangrove, deeper mangrove cuts, residential docks, and those type of areas that we've been fishing in the last month or two. So that's pretty similar. Also catching a few redfish this week. They're not in schools like they are in spring and summer. We're catching single redfish, once again, on live shrimp, basically tail hooked or hooked through the horn. With the trout, we're just basically, the trout and the sheephead, we're kind of just taking the head off and threading them. So we change it up, do whatever works for you, whatever works the best. There's also been some whiting around these same areas. Sheephead bite's been really good around the oyster beds, some of the oyster areas, areas of structure, rocky areas. Artificial reefs remain really well this week. Artificial reefs been holding plenty of sheephead. So have the residential canals anywhere with rocky areas like I was talking about. Been some jack crevalles around. Snook bite, we've got a few snook this week, but the snook bite still remains pretty slow in the areas I've been fishing. So there's plenty of action out there. Ladyfish, jack crevalles. So there's plenty of action. Get out on the water, catch you some fish, tight lines, and I'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you, Tony. We started a few minutes late, so we're going to roll a few minutes after 8. We're going to go ahead and run my report now, and then we'll wrap up.
Hey guys, this is Captain George Hastic of Fish Hunter Fishing Charters coming to you from St. Petersburg, Florida. Well, this warming trend that we've had, just like I expected, things are starting to really come alive. I can't wait till the bait starts moving in on the flats. If we keep up with this warming trend, we're definitely going to get that. Down around the Skyway, there is some bait showing up on the flats. Of course, the bridge has it on there, but it's really all coming together. You're going to get a little bit of both right now, which is kind of nice. You can get sheep's head still, and they're decent sized sheep's head now have moved in. A little late, but it was the same way last year, so maybe this is the new pattern. But fiddler crabs is definitely probably one of the best baits for the sheep's head, especially if they're being finicky. Of course, you can get them on shrimp. Barnacles work too, a little bit harder to keep on the hook. But the thing I'm seeing right now is a lot of snook are starting to come alive. Some larger redfish are starting to show up. So it's just all starting to happen right now. Look at it backwards with the cold weather we had, and a lot of the fish pushed up into like creeks, deeper creeks, rivers and stuff like that. So right now they're coming out. They're out on some of the flats. They're at the mouths of some of these areas where basically on these warm days that we're having, that shallower water is going to warm up faster. So they're enjoying it. We went from water temperatures in the 50s, mid 50s, to where now we're in the mid 60s. I even seen 66 2 days ago. So it's almost like spring has sprung already. It just depends on if we get any more cold fronts that come through. But if this trend keeps happening, I'm hoping the water doesn't warm up too fast. But your trout, try to get your boat positioned in about 4 feet of water. That way you have, let's say, shallower water on one side of your boat, and then the drop off in deeper water on the other side of the boat. And you can catch them while they transition as the sun's coming up in the morning. They might be a little bit deeper, but then as the sun comes up, they're going to get in that like 3 feet of water, and you'll be positioned for either or, and just fan cast until you find them. The other thing on the trout, look for your small bait schools on the flats. If you're seeing bait schools, try to cast in those areas because those trout have been following them. The snook, they're under the mangroves, they're around the docks. The same thing with the redfish. The redfish right now, I'm getting them on shrimp, but I'm sure they're getting ready to possibly change over or do a little bit of both. You could definitely try cut bait also right now for snook and the redfish. But it's a good time right now. Everything's starting to get really active. I've been catching all my reds lately on the shrimp, but I'm sure if you had some white bait, they'd probably go for that right now too with this type of weather we've been having. The snook right now, I'm seeing good sized snook at the docks and on the flats under the mangroves. So you got a little bit of both. So it's a kind of a transition month going on right now. So just keep your eyes open and kind of follow those fish, and you still have your wintertime fish hanging around. You got some silver trout still, like I said, larger sheep's head. So there's a little bit of everything going on, and just look at it as we're starting to get into that springtime pattern. All right, this has been Captain George Hastic. Have a good day.
And listening to Tony's report, it just goes to show you what we were talking about. If you want to stay on the fish, you got to be able to adapt, and that's what Tony was really talking about. Just adjusting.
You got to move until you find where the fish are. Sometimes the fish are there, but they're just not biting. But there's other places where there's fish biting, and if you move around and look for those areas where you have good moving water,
right,
or the temperature of the water is a little bit warmer in that area.
Yep.
Like you were saying with the, as it warms up on the flats. So that just a degree or two difference in water temperature, sometimes those fish will be biting good.
That's all it takes. Ken, go ahead and shout out your website for me. So if people want to get a hold of Ken, he fishes on the east side of the bay. So go ahead and tell us your website.
Okay, that's Captain Kenny's Fishing Adventures.com.
All right, one more time so they hear it.
Captain Kenny's Fishing Adventures.com.
All right. So Captain Kenny's FishingAdventures.com. If you want to get a hold of Captain Ken, I'm sure he can put you on some fish. I've seen him do it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate everybody tuning in. And Donald, I'll give you a call when the show's done. And we'll talk on the phone. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, everybody.